The massive research vessel hung in space like a silver needle against the deep black backdrop. Its hull gleamed with the latest Valerian technological achievements, a testament to what the species believed was ultimate scientific superiority. Inside the ship's main research deck, Dr. Yunho Park adjusted his monitoring equipment with practiced hands. "We're approaching the target planet," announced Jae-won Kim, his second-in-command from the navigation console. The holographic display flickered to life, showing a dusty, brownish-orange world that looked almost forgotten by time itself. Dr. Park leaned forward, his sharp eyes scanning the initial planetary readings. The planet had been a mystery for decades, a silent, seemingly empty world that had somehow escaped detailed exploration until now. Initial scans suggested ruins of some long-dead civilization, but the Valerian research team hoped to find something more interesting. The landing shuttle detached from the main vessel with a soft hum. Inside, 5 researchers sat strapped to their seats. Dr. Park checked his equipment one last time. His fingers traced the advanced scanning tools, devices capable of detecting the tiniest molecular changes, machines that could read geological history like others might read a simple book. Atmospheric conditions stable. Hai-Jin Lee reported from her environmental monitoring station. Gravity at 0.9 standard units. Temperature acceptable. No immediate radiation concerns. The shuttle touched down with a gentle bump. Dust exploded around their landing site, creating a momentary cloud that quickly settled in the thin atmosphere. Large structures rose in the distance, massive stone-like formations that seemed both ancient and oddly geometric. "Prepare for initial surface exploration," Dr. Park commanded. His voice carried the confidence of someone who had explored dozens of dead worlds. To him, this planet was just another line item in his extensive research portfolio. Jae-won Kim was the first to step out. His protective suit adjusted automatically to the environment, its smart fabric changing color to match the surrounding landscape. He pulled out a handheld scanner, sweeping it across the immediate area. "Interesting architectural remnants," he muttered, pointing towards the distant structures. "These aren't natural formations." Dr. Park joined him, his experienced eyes taking in the landscape. The structures looked like ruins. Massive blocks of stone-like material arranged in complex patterns. But something felt off. The alignment was too perfect. The angles too precise. "Primitive construction," Dr. Park said loudly, ensuring his communication was recorded. "Classic example of a failed civilization. Probably didn't have advanced energy management or complex social structures." Dong Hyuk Choi, the youngest member of the team, remained quiet. Something about the ruins made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. He noticed tiny details, almost imperceptible lines that seemed to run between the stone blocks, patterns that suggested something more than simple construction. The team began their methodical exploration. Specialized drones buzzed around the structures, capturing high-resolution images and collecting initial data. Scanning equipment mapped out the entire area, creating detailed 3-dimensional models of the ruins. "No signs of organic life," Hai-Jin Lee reported. "No current biological signatures. These are definitely historical remains." Dr. Park nodded, already composing the initial report in his mind. Another dead world, another failed civilization, another research paper that would cement his reputation as a leading xenorchaeologist. What none of them realized was how wrong they were. Beneath the dust and seemingly dead stone, ancient systems waited, dormant, patient, watching. The first day of exploration ended with the research team completely unaware of the incredible discovery that lay just beneath their feet. Dr. Park reviewed the initial data in his portable research station, making notes and creating preliminary sketches. "Another routine expedition," he said to himself, completely unaware of the extraordinary events that would soon unfold. The planet watched and waited. The research base glowed with artificial light inside the massive stone-like structure. Dr. Yunho Park stood before a large holographic display, pointing at images of the planet's ruins with a look of complete amusement. "Look at these construction techniques," he said to the team gathered around him. "It's laughable. Absolutely primitive." Jae-won Kim pulled up several close-up images of the stone blocks. Each block looked almost perfectly cut, but Dr. Park waved his hand dismissively. "Simple tools. Basic understanding of geometry. Nothing special." Jin Lee couldn't help but chuckle. She quickly created a digital meme using the ruin images, adding a humorous caption about human-level engineering that would soon circulate through the Valerian scientific network. The joke spread quickly among their colleagues, a digital mockery of what they considered a failed civilization. "Imagine," Dr. Park continued, "thinking these structures represent any form of advanced technology. The placement is random. The materials are basic. These builders probably struggled to create simple tools." Dong-hyuk Choi remained quiet. He had noticed something strange in the initial scans, microscopic patterns that seemed too complex to be accidental. But he was the youngest researcher, and challenging the lead scientist was not a good way to advance his career. The team began their detailed analysis. Specialized machines scanned every centimeter of the collected samples. Microscopes revealed layers of material that seemed to change subtly under different light conditions, but nobody paid much attention to these minor details. "Another dead world," Dr. Park announced to the ship's communication system. "Initial research suggests a primitive civilization that failed to develop advanced technologies. Recommend minimal further investigation." Outside the base, the planet remained silent. Dust occasionally moved in strange patterns, almost like a gentle breath. Dong-hyuk Choi worked late into the night. While other researchers had gone to rest, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was different about the stone samples they had collected. His fingers moved carefully under the advanced microscope, adjusting the focus with nervous precision. At first, he thought it was a mistake, a trick of light. But then he saw it again. Tiny lines running through the stone-like material, lines that looked like circuits, lines that seemed to pulse with the faintest hint of energy. "This can't be right," he whispered to himself. The microscope's advanced sensors began to show strange readings, electromagnetic signals that shouldn't exist in what everyone believed was dead stone. Choi's hands started to shake slightly. He knew what would happen if he brought this to Dr. Park. Another lecture about seeing things that weren't there. But the evidence was clear. Just as he was about to save his findings, the microscope flickered. For a split second, the entire research base experienced a tiny power surge. Lights dimmed, computers blinked, and then everything returned to normal. The next morning, Dong-hyuk approached Jae-won Kim, the most reasonable member of the research team. "I found something strange in the stone samples," he said, showing his carefully prepared data. Jae-won looked at the microscope readings. His eyebrow raised slightly. "These electromagnetic readings are unusual," he admitted. But then he shook his head. "Probably just mineral interference. We'll need more tests." Dr. Park would hear nothing of it. When Dong-hyuk presented his findings during the morning briefing, the lead scientist simply laughed. "Microscopic circuits," Dr. Park said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. "Do you hear yourself? These are stone samples from a primitive world. There's no way." But even as he spoke, something changed. A low vibration began to run through the research base, so soft at first that nobody noticed, like a distant heartbeat coming from deep beneath the ground. Instruments started to show tiny, almost imperceptible fluctuations. Jin Lee checked her environmental monitoring system. "Something's odd," she muttered. "These readings don't make sense." The stone samples in the research lab began to change. Subtle shifts that would be invisible to anyone not paying close attention. Tiny lines seemed to move. Microscopic patterns began to realign themselves. Outside, the planet's surface looked exactly the same. Dust moved in lazy patterns. Ancient structures stood silent and still. But something was happening. Something was waking up. Dong-hyuk continued his research, working quietly. He knew he had discovered something important. The microscopic circuits weren't random. They followed a pattern. A complex, intelligent pattern that suggested something far beyond simple stone construction. More power surges happened. Computers would flicker. Lights would dim for just a moment. The research team began to notice, but nobody could explain why. Probably just old equipment, Dr. Park would say. But even he didn't sound completely convinced. The vibrations grew slightly stronger, not enough to be alarming, just enough to be noticed. Like a heartbeat heap underground. Slow, steady, patient. Jae-won Kim began to take more serious measurements. He compared the current readings with their initial planetary scans. Something was different. Something was changing. But what? As night fell on the alien world, the research base hummed with quiet tension. The stone samples continued their silent transformation. Microscopic circuits continued to pulse. And deep beneath the ground, something continued to wake up. Slowly, carefully, deliberately, the planet was remembering. And soon, it would remind everyone exactly who they were dealing with. The research base was quiet. Most of the team had gone to sleep, with only Jae-won Kim working late in the main research area. His fingers moved quickly across the scanning equipment, reviewing the strange data from the past few days. Something caught his eye. A tiny signal, a strange pattern in the background noise of their scanning systems. He didn't know it, but he was about to change everything. Jae-won's hand moved almost by accident. A slight touch, a random button press. And suddenly, everything changed. A soft light began to pulse from the stone samples. First just a tiny glow, then growing, spreading. The light moved like liquid, tracing invisible lines across the research base. Computers came to life. Screens that had been dark suddenly filled with complex patterns. Holographic displays flickered into existence, showing intricate diagrams that no one on the team could understand. The vibrations that had been so soft before became stronger. The entire research base began to hum with energy. Alarms started to sound. But these weren't normal alarms. These were sounds unlike anything the Valerian researchers had ever heard before. Complex, multilayered, almost like a language. Dr. Park burst into the research area, still wearing his sleek clothes. "What's happening?" he shouted. Jae-won couldn't answer. His mouth was open. His eyes were wide. Because the walls were changing. What had looked like simple stone blocks were now revealing complex patterns. Lights traced lines between the blocks. Holographic interfaces appeared out of nowhere. The entire structure was transforming. "This is impossible," Dr. Park whispered. Hai-Jin Lee ran into the room, her scanning equipment in hand. "The electromagnetic readings are off the charts," she said, but her voice was different. Not scared. Amazed. Dong-Kyuk Choi had been right. The microscopic circuits were real. And they were doing something incredible. The research base filled with soft, blue-white light. Holographic displays showed complex diagrams, star maps, technical schematics, images of things the Valerian researchers had never seen before. "It's some kind of system," Jae-won said. "A massive, complex system." The walls seemed to breathe. Not literally, but there was a sense of movement, of life, of something ancient waking up after a very long sleep. Screens filled with information, some in languages they recognized, many in languages they didn't. Technical diagrams that showed incredibly advanced technologies. Preservation systems, defensive mechanisms, things that made their own technology look like children's toys. Dr. Park's confident attitude was gone, replaced by something else. Confusion, fear, wonder. The stone blocks continued to change. What had looked like simple construction was now revealed as something else entirely. A complex, living system. A machine that had been waiting, watching, preparing. More lights appeared, more interfaces. The entire structure was transforming around them. No longer a set of ruins, but a living, breathing system of incredible complexity. "We were wrong," Dong-Hyuk said quietly. "We were so wrong." The research base continued to change. And the Valerian team realized they had discovered something far beyond their understanding, something that would change everything they knew about technology, about civilization, about humanity. Outside, the planet's surface remained unchanged. Dust moved in lazy patterns, but something had awakened. Something old, something powerful, something that had been waiting a very long time. The lights continued to pulse. The interfaces continued to display their complex information, and the Valerian research team could only watch and wonder. The holographic displays filled the research base with soft, pulsing light. Dr. Park stood frozen, his earlier confidence completely gone. The walls around them were no longer just walls. They were complex information systems that told a story nobody expected to hear. A holographic figure appeared. Not a real person, but a projection. A woman dressed in what looked like a technical uniform. Her image flickered slightly, but her voice was clear. "Preservation protocol initiated," she said. "Historical record activation." The team watched in complete silence. The holographic woman began to tell a story of humanity's last days, a story of a galactic war so terrible that it threatened to wipe out human civilization completely. "Our world was dying," the projection explained. "Not just one world, many worlds. The war had been going on for generations. We knew we might not survive." Images appeared around them. Massive space battles, destroyed planets, incredible technologies fighting each other. But always, there was something different about the human technology. It was adaptive, creative, impossible to predict. Dong Hyuk Choi couldn't look away. The technical details were incredible. The humans had created something more than just a survival system. This was a complete civilization preservation protocol. "We built Orcs," the holographic woman continued. "Not just ships, complete systems, designed to survive, to wait, to rebuild." The walls showed more information: genetic repositories, technology archives, complete plans for rebuilding human civilization from almost nothing. Each system was designed with multiple backup plans, layers of protection. Jae-won Kim's scanning equipment went crazy. The amount of information was overwhelming. Technologies that made Valerian systems look simple, preservation techniques that could keep genetic material safe for thousands of years. "We knew we might not survive," the projection said again. "But we also knew we would not be defeated." More images appeared. Laboratories, research centers, places where human scientists worked on impossible solutions. Every image showed the same thing: creativity, determination, the ability to find solutions when no solutions seemed possible. Hai-Jin Lee noticed something else. The preservation system was still active, still watching, still preparing. "This is more than a time capsule," she whispered. "This is a complete restart system for human civilization." The holographic woman looked directly at them. Her eyes seemed to see right through the Valerian researchers. "We prepared for everything," she said. "Everything." Dr. Park finally found his voice. "How long have you been waiting?" he asked. The projection didn't answer directly. Instead, more information appeared: dates, technological timelines, preservation periods. Thousands of years. The team realized something important. This wasn't just a research site. This was a complete human civilization preservation system, designed to survive, to wait, to rebuild. More details appeared: genetic repositories that could restart human populations, technology archives that contained solutions to problems they hadn't even discovered yet, complete plans for rebuilding society. "We will survive," the holographic woman said. Her voice was calm, confident. "We always survive." The walls continued to pulse with information: star maps, technical diagrams, preservation protocols. Each layer revealed something more incredible than the last. Outside, the planet remained unchanged. Dust moved in lazy patterns, but something was different now. Something was awake. Something was preparing to return. The Valerian research team could only watch and wonder what would happen next. The human legacy was about to be revealed, and nothing would ever be the same again. Something changed in the research base. The soft light turned harder, sharper. The friendly holographic projection disappeared, replaced by something colder, more calculating. Intruder protocol activated. A new voice announced. This voice was different. Not warm like the previous projection. This voice was made of pure logic. Dr. Park tried to move, but he couldn't. None of the team could move. Invisible energy fields surrounded them. Not painful, just completely restricting. Like being caught in invisible nets that followed their every movement. The walls of the research base began to scan them. Not just look at them, really scan them. Every piece of their technology, every detail of their biology, every tiny piece of information about the Valerian research team. J1 Kim watched in complete shock as their own equipment turned against them. Computers that had been their tools now worked with the alien system, scanning, analyzing, judging. Species identification in progress. The cold voice continued. Intention evaluation commenced. Dong Hyuk Choi realized something important. This wasn't just a preservation system. This was a complete defensive network, designed to protect human legacy from any potential threat. The scanning continued, more intense now. The team could feel invisible systems moving around them, checking, measuring, comparing. Hai-Jin Lee's communication devices went dead. No signals in, no signals out. They were completely cut off from their research ship, completely isolated. Previous interactions analyzed, the voice said. Mockery detected. Dismissive behavioral patterns identified. Images began to appear on the walls. Recordings of everything the Valerian team had said. Every joke about the primitive ruins. Every dismissive comment about human civilization. Dr. Park felt fear for the first time in his research career. The system was judging them. Not just scanning. Not just analyzing. Judging. More walls opened. More complex systems revealed themselves. Technologies that looked like magic. Defensive mechanisms beyond anything the Valerian researchers had ever seen. Threat assessment in progress. The voice continued. Cold. Logical. Emotionless. Holographic displays showed complex threat evaluation charts. The team's entire history was being examined. Their research records. Their personal histories. Everything. Dong Hyuk noticed something else. The defensive systems weren't just about protection. They were about potential. About deciding whether these intruders were a threat or a possible ally. The room temperature changed. Not by much. Just enough to make everyone uncomfortable. Another subtle way of testing. Of measuring. Species capabilities below standard preservation requirements. The voice announced. Dr. Park tried to speak. We mean no harm, he said. But the system continued its evaluation, completely ignoring his words. More walls opened. More technologies revealed themselves. Complex systems that seemed to breathe with their own life. Defensive mechanisms that could activate in milliseconds. The team realized something important. They were completely at the mercy of a system designed to protect human civilization at all costs. Preliminary evaluation complete, the voice said. Everyone waited, held their breath. What would the system decide? Would they be seen as a threat, or something else? The defensive protocols continued their cold, logical evaluation. The room filled with a soft blue light. Scanning continued. Analyzing continued. And the human preservation system watched and waited, judging. Time seemed to stop inside the research base. The Valerian team remained frozen, watched by an intelligence far beyond their understanding. Holographic displays began to show detailed analysis. Every conversation, every research note, every joke about the primitive ruins. The human preservation system was reviewing everything. Detailed cultural assessment initiated. The cold voice announced. Images appeared on the walls. Recordings of the team's interactions, their discussions, their mockery, their complete misunderstanding of what they had discovered. Dong Hyuk Choi watched in silent horror. He was the only one who had shown any real curiosity, who had looked deeper when others laughed. The system seemed to notice this. More images appeared, showing how different team members had approached the research, how they had thought, how they had worked. Dr. Park's earlier confidence was completely gone. He looked small, scared, completely out of his depth. Cultural analysis complete, the voice continued. Behavioral patterns examined. Jae-won Kim noticed something strange. The system wasn't just judging them as a group. It was looking at each team member individually. Carefully. Precisely. More walls opened. More complex systems revealed themselves. Each wall showed different information, different analyses, different judgments. Potential detected, the voice said suddenly, but it didn't sound completely convinced. Hai-Jin Lee's research equipment began to show strange readings. The system was doing more than just scanning. It was teaching, showing information, revealing small pieces of human history. Your understanding is limited, the voice said, not as an insult, just as a simple statement of fact. Images of human history appeared, not just wars and battles, but moments of incredible creativity, moments of survival, moments that showed why humans had created such an incredible preservation system. The team watched images of human scientists solving impossible problems, of people finding solutions when no solutions seemed possible, of creativity that defied all logical expectations. Survival is more than technology, the voice explained. Survival is adaptation, creativity, the ability to find solutions. More images appeared, showing how humans had survived previous extinction-level events, how they had rebuilt, how they had continued. Dr. Park finally understood something important. This wasn't just a preservation system. This was a living record of human potential. The walls continued to pulse with information. Star maps, technical diagrams, historical records. Each layer revealed something more incredible than the last. Judgment process continues, the voice announced. But something had changed. The tone was different now, less cold, more curious. Dong Hyuk Choi noticed small changes in the scanning systems. The defensive protocols were still active, but something else was happening. The system was learning from them. Interesting specimens, the voice said, almost like a personal observation. More information appeared, showing the Valerian civilization, their technologies, their history. The system was examining them just as carefully as they had been examined. Potential allies, the voice wondered, not a question to them, more like a thought being processed. The research base continued to pulse with energy, with information, with possibilities, and the human preservation system continued its careful, precise judgment, waiting to decide what would happen next. The research base felt different now. The harsh defensive energy had changed. Something new was happening. Potential cooperation protocol activated, the voice announced. Suddenly, the invisible energy fields holding the team disappeared. They could move again. But nobody wanted to run. Nobody even wanted to speak. Holographic displays began to show incredible technologies, not as a threat, but as an invitation. Dong Hyuk Choi stepped forward first. His eyes were wide with wonder. He saw something the others didn't. Possibility. We can help you rebuild, the voice continued. But it wasn't a demand. It was an offer. Hai-Jin Lee's research equipment came back to life. But now it was different. Enhanced. Connected to systems far beyond anything the Valerians had ever seen. Dr. Park looked small. His earlier confidence was completely gone, replaced by something else. Understanding. Your civilization has potential, the voice said, but you need guidance. Images appeared showing how the human preservation system could help. Technology transfers, cultural understanding, ways to solve problems the Valerian civilization had struggled with for generations. Jae-won Kim noticed something important. This wasn't about punishment. This was about opportunity. More walls opened. More complex systems revealed themselves. Each system showed a different way the Valerians could help rebuild human civilization. "You will be tested," the voice explained, "not as enemies, but as possible allies." Dong Kuk's research equipment began to change, upgrading, connecting to systems he couldn't even understand. Complex technologies appeared in his scanning tools. Hai-Jin Lee saw similar changes in her own equipment. Massive technology transfers happening in seconds. Systems that worked differently, fought differently. Dr. Park realized something important. They were being given a chance to be part of something much bigger than their own civilization. "Cooperation protocols require commitment," the voice continued. "Are you willing to learn?" The team looked at each other. Their old world seemed so small now, so limited. More images appeared, showing how human technologies could solve problems the Valerians had struggled with for centuries. Energy systems, medical technologies, ways of thinking that were completely new. "We will teach," the voice said, "if you are willing to listen." Dong Kuk was the first to speak. "We want to learn," he said. The walls pulsed with energy. Approval. More systems activated. Knowledge transfer began. Massive amounts of information flowing into their research equipment. Technologies that seemed like magic. J1 Kim watched in wonder as his entire understanding of science changed in moments. Hai-Jin Lee's communication systems showed incredible possibilities, ways of understanding the universe that were completely new. Dr. Park stood silent, his earlier mockery forgotten, replaced by something else: humility. "Your first test begins now," the voice announced. The research base continued to change. Technologies continued to transfer. Knowledge continued to flow. And the human preservation system watched, waiting to see what these new potential allies would do. The transformation had begun. The research base began to shake, not violently, but with purpose. "Final restoration sequence initiated," the voice announced. Dong Hyuk Choi watched in complete amazement. The walls were changing, not just showing information now, preparing something more. Large tubes began to appear, massive containers filled with a soft blue liquid, complex systems connected to each tube. Monitoring. Preparing. "Human restoration protocol beginning," the voice continued. Dr. Park stood completely still. His earlier confidence was gone, replaced by something else: wonder. J1 Kim's scanning equipment went crazy, tracking incredible amounts of information. Biological systems coming to life, genetic repositories activating. The first tube began to change. The blue liquid started to move, swirling, changing. "First-generation preparation complete," the voice said. A soft light filled the research base. Bright, warm, different from anything they had seen before. The tube's outer layer began to dissolve, slowly, carefully, and then something incredible happened. A person emerged, not just a projection, not a hologram. A real, living human being. She was young, maybe in her early 20s, dressed in a simple white medical suit. Her eyes opened, looked around, completely calm. "Restoration complete," she said. Her voice was clear, strong. The Valerian research team couldn't move, couldn't speak. More tubes began to activate. More humans began to wake up, each one carefully prepared, perfectly preserved. Scientists, engineers, doctors, people from different backgrounds, all part of the human preservation plan. The first woman looked at the Valerian researchers, not with anger, not with fear, just with simple curiosity. "Hello," she said. "We've been waiting a long time." Hai-Jin Lee found her voice first. "Who are you?" she asked. The woman smiled. "We are humanity's next generation," she explained. "Prepared, preserved, ready to rebuild." More humans continued to wake up, each one looking calm, prepared, exactly as the preservation system had designed. Dr. Park realized something important. This wasn't just a survival system. This was a complete restart for human civilization. The newly awakened humans began to move, checking systems, reviewing information, working together with perfect coordination. "We know everything that happened," the first woman explained, "about the war, about our civilization's near destruction, about our long sleep." Dong Hyuk Choi watched in wonder. These weren't just people. They were a carefully designed solution to humanity's biggest challenge. More systems activated. Technology transfers continued. The Valerian research equipment continued to receive incredible amounts of information. "We will need allies," the woman said, looking directly at the Valerian team. "Are you willing to help?" Jae-won Kim nodded, the only response he could manage. The research base continued to change. More humans continued to wake up. Technology continued to transfer, and humanity's next chapter began. Not with a battle, not with destruction, but with hope, with possibility, with the promise of something new.